Much like Dungeons & Dragons, Warhammer 40k is something I've always thought sounded super cool, but just never got around to trying. I'm still not going to try true Warhammer, as I have little patience and less money for a figure-based tabletop game, but when I saw that a remaster of the original Space Marine game was on Game Pass, I jumped on it, eager to begin my journey into the lore of Warhammer 40k. Space Marine immediately felt very similar to Gears of War when I started playing it. They're both third-person shooters, they both involve relatively slow movement, they both combine ranged and melee combat, they both have massive characters, and they're both exceptionally violent. The big difference in feel, though, is that Gears of War is all about using cover strategically, whereas Space Marine is all about being a slowly but unstoppably forward-moving wall of death. There's no take cover button in Space Marine. You can stand behind cover, but you won't snap to it or duck or anything. You take those orc bullets like a man, and you dish it back like a space man. That took some getting used to, as I instinctively try to take cover as soon as a fight starts in basically any game. Once I got a feel for it, though, oh man, it was fun, and the story sucked me in pretty quickly. I didn't even know what my religion was supposed to be at first, but I was amped to perforate some heretics nonetheless. The story revolves around Captain Titus of the Ultramarines, and his two squadmates, Sidonus and Leandros. They are sent to a forge world, still not sure what that is, although I'm guessing a planet devoted to manufacturing, based on the context clues, called Graia, to help Imperial forces repel a massive orc invasion. The game does a good job of easing you into combat, at least on the default difficulty, as it starts off pretty easy with weak orcs, most of which can be killed with 1 or 2 shots, until eventually throwing you against walking suits of space armor that take enough bullets to supply the entire Latvian military for a year in order to kill. Eventually, a second faction enters the fray, although I won't spoil who that is or how that happens, on the off chance that someone, like me, hasn't played this 14-year-old game. Originally being a PS3 and 360 release, the game was technically HD, but it only reached 720p and was limited to 30 frames per second. That's totally playable, even today, if you're not a hoe, but the Mastercrafted Edition remaster bumps that resolution and frame rate from 720p 30 to 2160p 60, right in line with what modern shooters today have conditioned us to expect. The textures are much improved over the original release as well, and the control scheme and interface have both been updated to feel more comfortable and modern. The voice acting impressed me, given when the game was originally released, and that did a lot to help my immersion, as I started to take genuine interest in Titus's fight and his leadership of his squad. The Mastercrafted Edition also includes all of the DLC that the original release got, so it's got a pretty fleshed out multiplayer option in addition to the campaign. I only messed with the multiplayer a little, as I'm far more interested in single-player narrative modes, but it played well. Being a remaster, it was never going to have an overflowing player base, but the inclusion of crossplay with PC does help keep the game from being totally empty. A lot of folks, from what I've read, felt that $40 was too steep an asking price, especially since an Anniversary Edition came out just 4 years ago. But for someone like me, who's had zero exposure to Warhammer 40k except for his college roommate showing off his figurines and making it sound rad as hell, the price of admission definitely feels fair. Granted, I played on Game Pass, so my price of admission was the monthly subscription I pay anyway, but you get my point. Warhammer 40k Space Marine isn't a mind-blowing experience, but it's fun, engaging, and, at least in my mind as a Warhammer newcomer, a good first experience to the world and lore of Warhammer 40k. I'm more broke than America's rule of law right now, so it won't be for a while, but I definitely am going to buy this on Xbox, as I usually try to do with games that I really enjoy to vote with my dollar, so to speak. It doesn't reinvent the third-person shooter, and it certainly doesn't top Gears of War in the genre, but it's a lot of fun, and I can definitely see myself replaying it at some point. If you have a Series X or a gaming PC, definitely check this one out, especially if you have Game Pass. My rating for Warhammer 40k Mastercrafted Edition on Series X and Windows is a B.